The Infinity Pool. A story of forbidden connection and second chances. The text message that changed everything arrived at 11:47 p.m. Asterisk. I know what happened at the pool. I know what you're hiding. And if you don't meet me tonight, your son will know everything by morning. Asterisk. I dropped my wine glass, watching it shatter across the Italian marble floor of my Malibu mansion like my carefully constructed life was about to do. My hands trembled as I read the message again, my heart pounding against my ribs. 23 years of building the perfect facade, the successful interior design business, the beautiful home, the devoted mother image, all of it threatened by one stolen moment of weakness 3 days ago. But it wasn't the threat that terrified me most. It was the realization that part of me wanted to meet him, wanted to feel alive again the way I had when his eyes first found mine across that shimmering water. I was 45 years old, recently divorced, and completely unprepared for the storm that had walked into my life in the form of my son's college roommate. Ethan Mercer. 24. Brilliant. Dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical harm, and everything to do with making me question every choice I'd ever made. And now he was threatening to expose the electric moment we'd shared, unless I gave him something I wasn't sure I could afford to give. My attention. My time. My heart. 3 days earlier, I had been floating in my infinity pool, trying to wash away the residue of my marriage's funeral. The divorce papers had been signed that morning, 22 years reduced to signatures and asset divisions. The California sun kissed my skin as I drifted, my long dark hair fanning out around me like a silk curtain on the water's surface. I hadn't heard him approach. Mrs. Chase. I startled, nearly inhaling water as I spun toward the voice. Standing at the pool's edge, backlit by the sun like some Greek god made flesh, was a young man I vaguely recognized. Tall, athletically built with the kind of lean muscle that came from swimming or climbing, fair skin that suggested he spent more time in libraries than beaches, and eyes, God, those eyes, the color of aged whiskey that seemed to see straight through my careful composure. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that felt entirely too intimate. "Ryan said I could let myself in. I'm Ethan, his roommate from Stanford." I felt suddenly ridiculously exposed. I was a grown woman, for heaven's sake, not some blushing teenager. But the way he was looking at me, not leering, not dismissive, but seeing me in a way no one had in years, made me acutely aware of every curve the water was doing little to hide. "Ethan, of course," I managed, swimming toward the ladder with what I hoped was maternal composure. "Ryan mentioned you'd be staying for the summer. He didn't tell me you'd be arriving today. My flight got in early." His eyes tracked my movement, and I didn't miss the slight catch in his breath as I climbed out. "He's picking up groceries. Should be back in an hour." A pause waited with something unspoken. "I can wait in the car if I'm—" "Don't be ridiculous." I grabbed my robe, wrapping it around myself like armor. "You're practically family. Make yourself comfortable." But as our eyes met across the steam rising off the heated pool, family was the last thing on either of our minds. If you're already hooked by my impossible situation, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you breathless. The week that followed was an exquisite torture I couldn't escape, and didn't want to. Ethan was everything I'd trained myself not to notice in younger men. Witty, intellectually fierce, and possessed of an emotional intelligence that made me feel both seen and slightly terrified. He was pre-law at Stanford, graduating top of his class, planning to become a civil rights attorney. When he spoke about justice, about protecting the vulnerable, his entire being seemed to catch fire with purpose. "You're staring," he said one evening, catching me over the rim of my wine glass as we sat on the terrace. Ryan had disappeared to call his girlfriend, leaving us alone in the golden hour light. "I'm not staring. I'm assessing." Assessing what, exactly? That damned smile, the one that made me feel both young and foolish. Whether you actually believe all those idealistic speeches, or if it's just a performance you've perfected to charm professors and unsuspecting mothers. Ethan laughed. A full, genuine sound that made something long dormant flutter in my chest. "Unsuspecting, huh? I think you're probably the most suspecting woman I've ever met, Mrs. Chase." "Victoria." "What?" I set down my glass, holding his gaze with a steadiness I didn't feel. If you're going to psychoanalyze me with those knowing looks, you should at least call me by my name. Something shifted in the air between us. Victoria, he repeated, and my name in his mouth sounded like the beginning of something I wasn't sure I could survive. The stolen moments began innocently enough. Morning coffee on the terrace, discussing everything from constitutional law to my favorite artists. He wanted to know about my work. I'd designed interiors for some of the most exclusive homes in Los Angeles, and actually listened when I explained my philosophy. Spaces should tell the truth about who people are, I told him once, not who they're pretending to be. And what truth does your space tell? He asked. I looked around at the pristine catalog-perfect rooms I'd designed. Everything in its place. Everything controlled. That I've been hiding for a very long time. Ethan didn't ask what I was hiding from. Instead, he simply nodded, and the understanding in his eyes felt more intimate than any touch. But it was the afternoons that truly tested my resolve. Ethan had taken to swimming in the infinity pool while I worked in my home office, and I found my concentration shattered every time his body cut through the water. I watched him through the window, this beautiful young man who looked at me like I was something precious rather than something discarded. On the 5th day I joined him. Finally, he said, grinning as I slipped into the water. I was starting to think you were afraid of me. I'm not afraid of you. Then what? He swam closer, close enough that I could see the water droplets clinging to his eyelashes. Because every time I get near you, you look like you're bracing for impact. My heart hammered. Maybe I am. Why? Because you make me remember what it feels like to want something for myself. Because your eyes on me make me feel beautiful in a way I haven't felt in years. Because I'm terrified that what I'm feeling isn't just loneliness. And I have no idea what to do with that. Instead, I said, because I'm old enough to know that some impacts leave scars. Ethan moved closer still, and I found myself backing against the pool's edge, trapped between cold stone and warm intent. Victoria, he murmured, and my name had never sounded so much like a question and an answer at once. The moment stretched between us, electric and terrifying. I could feel the heat of his body even through the cool water, could see the pulse jumping in his throat. One of us would have to break this spell, and I knew it should be me. Instead, I let myself really look at him for the first time. Not as my son's friend. Not as a young man too young to possibly understand what I was feeling. But as someone who saw me, wanted me, and wasn't afraid to let me know. Ethan. Don't. His voice was rough. Don't say whatever sensible thing you're about to say. Don't remind me of all the reasons this is complicated. Just let me look at you for one more second. Please. And God help me, I did. This moment changes everything, and what I discovered next shocked me to my core. If you're feeling the tension, drop a comment below and subscribe because the biggest twist is still coming. The almost kiss haunted us both. I threw myself into work, avoiding the pool, avoiding Ethan, avoiding the hurricane of feelings I didn't know how to process. I was a grown woman, a mother, the mother of his best friend. Whatever madness had possessed me needed to end. But then I found the letters. Ryan had asked me to grab his laptop charger from Ethan's room, and I'd noticed the worn leather journal on his desk. I wouldn't have opened it, I wasn't that person, but a photograph had slipped out. A photograph of me. It was from 3 years ago, taken at Ryan's graduation party. I was laughing at something, my head thrown back, my dark hair catching the sun. I hadn't known anyone was watching. But someone had captured me in a moment of unguarded joy. And someone had kept that photo for 3 years. My hands shook as I opened the journal, knowing I shouldn't, unable to stop myself. I saw her today for the first time since that party. 3 years of carrying her image, and she's even more beautiful than my memory allowed. The way she looks at me, like I'm a puzzle she's trying not to solve. It makes me want to spend my entire life being worth her attention. This is madness. I know it's madness. She's Ryan's mother. She's 20 years older than me. She would never, could never, but God, the way she says my name. Like it means something. Like I mean something. I came here to get over this ridiculous obsession. To see her as human, as ordinary, as anything other than the woman who has occupied every corner of my mind for 3 years. Instead, I've only made it worse. She is extraordinary. She is everything. And I am completely, hopelessly lost. Asterisk. I closed the journal, my heart racing. 3 years. He'd been thinking about me for 3 years and I'd had no idea. I thought back to that graduation party. A blur of champagne and forced smiles as I played the perfect faculty wife for Michael. I couldn't even remember meeting Ethan specifically. But he remembered me. He'd photographed me. He'd kept that photograph, written about me in journals, and carried this impossible feeling through college, through dating, through everything, waiting for what? I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find Ethan in the doorway, his face pale as he saw what I was holding. Victoria. 3 years. My voice cracked. You've been for 3 years? He didn't deny it. Didn't excuse it. Just stood there with his heart in his eyes finally exposed. From the first moment I saw you laugh. This is insane. I know. I'm your best friend's mother. I know. I'm 45 years old, Ethan. I have a son your age. I just finalized my divorce from a man who spent 2 decades making me feel invisible. I don't even know who I am anymore without that marriage, and you? My voice broke. You can't possibly want me. Not really. Not when you understand what you'd be giving up. Ethan crossed the room with 3 long strides, stopping just inches from me. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off his body. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his whiskey-colored eyes. I am 24 years old, he said quietly, and I have never once in my life felt about anyone the way I feel about you. I have tried to date. I have tried to move on. I have told myself 1,000 times that this is a fantasy, a fixation, something I would outgrow. His hand came up, trembling slightly, to brush a strand of hair from my face. But then I see you and I know. This isn't infatuation, Victoria. This is the most real thing I've ever felt. What if you're wrong? What if I'm not? We stood there for an eternity, balanced on the knife's edge of a decision that would change everything. And just when I had almost decided to step back, to do the sensible thing, to be the adult, my phone buzzed with a text from my son. Hey Mom, just wanted to give you a heads up. Ethan's ex-girlfriend is in town, and she's coming to dinner tonight. She's been trying to get him back for months. Should be interesting. The cold that washed through me had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Your ex-girlfriend? I asked, stepping back so fast I nearly stumbled. Ethan's expression shifted from tender to confused. What? Who told you? Ryan. Apparently she's coming to dinner tonight. She wants you back. Victoria, whatever Ryan thinks he knows, I think you should talk to her. My voice was steady now, hardened by years of practice hiding hurt behind composure. I think you should remember what it's like to be with someone your own age, someone uncomplicated, someone who doesn't come with decades of baggage, and a son who would never forgive either of us. That's not. Please leave. I turned away, clutching his journal to my chest like evidence of a crime we'd almost committed. I'll return this later. Just, please go. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. Then I heard his footsteps retreat, and the click of the door closing felt like a period at the end of a sentence I hadn't meant to write. The ex-girlfriend's arrival was about to reveal a truth that would shatter everything. Share this video with someone who loves unexpected love stories, and keep watching. The revelation you never saw coming is seconds away. Dinner that night was an exercise in elegant torture. Ryan's girlfriend Chelsea had come down from San Francisco, bringing with her a vivacity that normally would have delighted me. But I could barely focus on the conversation because of the woman seated across from Ethan. Madison Blake was everything I wasn't, 24, blonde, casually confident in that way of people who'd never had to rebuild themselves from rubble. She touched Ethan constantly, small possessive gestures that made my stomach clench even as I told myself I had no right to jealousy. Mrs. Chase, Ethan tells me you're an interior designer, Madison said, her smile perfectly pleasant and perfectly calculated. That must be so creative. I do all right. She's being modest, Ethan interjected. his eyes finding mine across the table with an intensity that made my breath catch. She's designed spaces for some of the most influential families in California. Her work is extraordinary. How would you know? Madison's laugh was brittle. You've been here, what, a week? Long enough to recognize brilliance. The table fell silent. Ryan looked between his mother and his roommate with dawning confusion. Chelsea suddenly became very interested in her wine. And Madison's perfectly pleasant expression flickered with something darker. Well, Madison said, recovering quickly, I'm sure she's very talented at arrangement. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me. I need to check on dessert. I made it to the kitchen before the tears came, silent and furious. I was not going to fall apart over a man young enough to be my student, not going to let myself believe that his defense of me meant anything, not going to. Victoria. I whirled to find Ethan in the doorway, his expression anguished. You need to go back out there, I whispered fiercely. Your girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend. And I couldn't care less about her right now. I care about you standing in here crying because I was stupid enough to let this dinner happen. I'm not crying over you. Liar. He moved closer, and despite everything, I didn't retreat. You're crying because you felt something when I defended you. You're crying because part of you wants to believe this is real, and part of you is terrified to try. Stop. Why? So you can go back to pretending you're invisible? So you can let people like Madison make you feel less than what you are? His voice dropped, urgent and raw. Victoria, I have watched you minimize yourself all week. Apologizing for taking up space, deflecting every compliment, acting like you don't deserve to be seen. And I don't know what your ex-husband did to make you believe that, but I am telling you right now, you are magnificent. You are brilliant and kind and so beautiful it hurts to look at you. And if you would just let yourself. Let myself what? I demanded, the words torn from somewhere deep. Fall for a man 20 years younger than me? Destroy my relationship with my son? Become the scandal that everyone already half expects from the abandoned wife? Let yourself be happy. His voice cracked on the word. For 5 minutes, stop worrying about what everyone else thinks and ask yourself what you want. The kitchen door swung open and Ryan stood there, his face a mask of confusion that slowly shifted to something worse. Understanding. What's going on here? His voice was too calm, the way voices get before storms. Neither Ethan nor I moved. Neither of us spoke. The air in the kitchen felt suddenly thin, suffocating. Ryan, I started. Mom. Ryan's eyes moved from my tear-stained face to Ethan's tortured expression, and I watched realization dawn like a wound opening. What the hell is going on with you and Ethan? What followed was the worst conversation of my life. Ryan's shock turned to disbelief, then to a cold fury that broke my heart. He wouldn't look at Ethan, wouldn't look at me. Just paced the living room while Chelsea and Madison made hasty excuses and disappeared. This is a joke, right? Ryan finally demanded. Some kind of twisted prank? Nothing happened between us, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. I swear to you, Ryan, nothing. But something was going to. I saw the way you were looking at each other. I'm not blind, Mom. He turned to Ethan, and the betrayal in his eyes was devastating. She's my mother. My mother who just got divorced, who I came home to support. And you decided to make her your next conquest. It's not like that, Ethan said quietly. Ryan, you have to understand. Understand what? That you've been lusting after my mom while living under her roof? While pretending to be my friend. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. God, I'm such an idiot. The way you always asked about her. Always wanted to see pictures. Always found excuses to come home with me for holidays. Ryan, please. I'm done. Ryan grabbed his keys from the counter. I can't be here right now. I can't look at either of you. The door slammed behind him, and I felt something inside me shatter. I'll go after him, Ethan said, moving toward the door. No. My voice stopped him cold. Haven't you done enough? The words landed like a slap. Ethan flinched, and for a moment, something fragile flickered in his eyes before shuddering closed. You're right, he said, his voice hollow. I should never have come here. I should have let this go years ago instead of. He stopped, swallowed hard. I'll pack my things. I'll be gone by morning. He was halfway up the stairs when I called out, Ethan. He paused but didn't turn around. The journal, I said, my voice breaking. Those things you wrote. Did you mean them? Really mean them? The silence stretched between us, thick with grief and longing and a future that had been shattered before it could begin. Every word, he said finally. I've meant every word I've ever written about you. And I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I'd been brave enough to say them sooner. Then he was gone, and I stood alone in the ruins of the life I'd been trying so hard to hold together. The next 48 hours would determine whether this love story ended in heartbreak or hope. If you want to see me find my happiness, make sure you're subscribed. And leave a comment telling me who you're rooting for. 2 days later, the threatening text arrived. I had spent 48 hours in agony, barely sleeping, barely eating. Ryan wasn't returning my calls. Ethan had left as promised, a brief note on the kitchen counter that simply said, I'm sorry for everything except for loving you. And then my phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m., and everything changed again. I know what happened at the pool. I know what you're hiding. And if you don't meet me tonight, your son will know everything by morning. For one terrifying moment, I thought it was Madison, somehow having witnessed or guessed the truth. But when I traced the number, it came back to someone else entirely. My ex-husband, Michael. I met him at a 24-hour diner 3 miles from the house, my heart pounding with fear and fury in equal measure. Michael was already there, looking smug in that way I'd learned to hate over 22 years. Victoria, you look distressed. What do you want, Michael? He slid his phone across the table and I saw photographs. Photographs of me and Ethan by the pool. The moment we'd almost kissed. His hand touching my face. My eyes closed, lost in something dangerous. Where did you get these? I whispered. Does it matter? What matters is what I'll do with them if you don't cooperate. He leaned forward, his smile sharp as glass. I want the house, Victoria. I want the business. I want everything you took from me in the divorce. I didn't take anything from you. You cheated. Repeatedly. The court. The court can be revisited. Especially when I show them evidence that you're sleeping with a boy young enough to be your son. Your son's best friend, in fact. He shrugged, cold and satisfied. How do you think that'll look to the judge? To our friends? To Ryan? My blood turned to ice. This was why he'd agreed to the divorce so easily. This was why he'd seemed almost cheerful at the final signing. He'd been planning this. Waiting. Watching. Nothing happened. I said, my voice shaking. Those photos show a middle-aged woman making a fool of herself over a college kid. The narrative writes itself. Michael stood, dropping money on the table for his coffee. You have until Friday to sign the papers my lawyer will send. Otherwise, these photos go everywhere. Your son, your clients, every design blog that features your work. He paused, smiling. Think about what matters more. Your pride or your reputation. He walked out and I sat frozen, the photograph still glowing on the phone screen before me. The next morning I found Ethan at my door. I got your message, he said, holding up his phone. Victoria, what's going on? I hadn't sent a message. But when I checked my phone I saw it. A text from my number to Ethan's, sent at 3 a.m. Asterisk, I need you. Please come. Asterisk. Michael. It had to be Michael. He was playing games, trying to create more evidence, more scandal. You need to leave, I said, even as every cell in my body screamed the opposite. You need to stay away from me. Michael is. I know about Michael. Ethan stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Ryan called me last night. He told me about the threats, the blackmail. He told me his father is a monster who's been controlling both of you for years. And he's done watching it happen. I blinked. Ryan talked to you? He did more than talk. He apologized for how he reacted. He said he's never seen you look at anyone the way you looked at me, and even if it terrifies him, he wants you to be happy. Ethan's voice softened. He said his father destroyed enough of your life. He's not going to let him destroy this too. This, I whispered. What is this, Ethan? This is me refusing to walk away. Ethan crossed the room, stopping inches from me, his eyes burning with determination. This is me telling you that I don't care about the age difference, the complications, or the scandal. This is me asking you to let me fight for you. With you. Michael has photographs. Then we'll face them together. Whatever he throws at us, we face it together. Ethan's hand came up to cup my face, gentle and steady. I've spent 3 years loving you from a distance, Victoria. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to try. What about your career? Your future? If this becomes a scandal, then I'll build a new future. With you. The tears came then, the ones I'd been holding back for days. But these weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of something I'd forgotten how to feel, hope. The confrontation with Michael came 3 days later, in a conference room full of lawyers. I arrived with Ethan on one side and Ryan on the other, my son, who had driven down from San Francisco specifically to face his father. The photographs were on the table between us, and Michael's smug confidence wavered when he saw the united front. You think this changes anything? Michael blustered. Those photos were taken from a public beach with a telephoto lens, Ryan interrupted coldly. Which means you either hired someone to stalk Mom, or you did it yourself. Either way, my lawyer says that's a crime. Michael's face paled. Ryan, son, this isn't. Don't call me that. Ryan's voice was ice. You cheated on her for years. You made her feel worthless. And now you're trying to blackmail her for having the audacity to move on. He slid a folder across the table. Those are sworn statements from 3 of your former assistants about your own indiscretions. Want to guess what the court will think of those? The room fell silent. Michael's lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently, and I watched my ex-husband's empire of control crumble in real time. Sign the original divorce agreement, I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. Walk away from the house, the business, and any claim to my life. Or we take this public, and we see whose reputation survives. Michael signed. 6 months later, I stood by the infinity pool, watching the sunset paint the water gold. Ethan's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? That day you first saw me here, I admitted. How terrified I was of what I was feeling. And now, I turned in his arms, looking up at this man who had fought for me, believed in me, and showed me that love didn't have to mean diminishing myself. Now I'm thinking about how grateful I am that you didn't give up on me. Our kiss was soft, tender, and full of promise. A promise of a future we were building together, one day at a time. Ryan came home for Christmas that year, bringing Chelsea, who was now his fiancée. He and Ethan had rebuilt their friendship, slowly and carefully, and watching them laugh together over holiday dinner filled me with a joy I'd never expected to feel again. You look happy, Mom, Ryan said later, finding me alone in the kitchen. I am happy. I squeezed his hand. Thank you for being brave enough to accept this. I know it wasn't easy. Honestly. Ryan smiled a little ruefully. Seeing how he looks at you, how he takes care of you. I think I always knew Ethan was different. I just didn't understand why until now. He kissed my cheek. You deserve to be loved like that, Mom. You always did. I learned in the autumn of my life that love doesn't follow rules or timelines. It arrives when it arrives, often in the most unexpected forms, and the only real question is whether you're brave enough to let it in. I almost lost everything, my son, my reputation, my sense of self, before I found the courage to accept that I was worthy of love. Real love. The kind that sees you clearly, fights for you fiercely, and refuses to let you hide. If you've ever felt invisible, undervalued, or afraid to reach for happiness, know that it's never too late. Your story isn't over. The best chapters might still be waiting to be written. And sometimes the most unexpected connections become the greatest loves of our lives. Thank you for joining my journey. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in second chances, please like and subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that love has no expiration date. Until next time. Keep believing in your own extraordinary story.